Hello everyone. I'd like to thank you so much for attending today's webinar, Park Your Phone, Drive Your Car. My name is Kat Amato and I'm the Sales and Marketing Director at Cogno. I'd like to take a moment to thank our partner community who have invited their members and clients to attend today's event. Cogno partners with many different business segments to provide online training courses directly from their website, so members and clients have a convenient place to purchase the training they need. We have thousands of courses in virtually every business topic available in our marketplace, including human resources, software, social media, business management, leadership, and soft skills training, to name just a few of the topics available. So be sure to check out our website to search for options. And if you're not a Cogno partner, you can email me today at info@cogno.com and I'll send you information on how to sign up. It's completely easy, free of charge, and earns your company revenue. Today we're very pleased to have our guest host, Brandon Dufour. Brandon is a third-generation entrepreneur whose work at All-Star Driver has led to over 45,000 new safe drivers on the road in the last 6 years. Brandon brings not only a knowledge of safety, but knows the ins and outs of running a company, motivating the staff, and building a positive culture in a company. So it is with my great pleasure that we welcome Brandon today.
Thanks, Kat. Thanks so much, everybody, for being on here. I am in Connecticut, where we are in the heat of pollen count. I think it's about 82 million today, so I apologize for my stuffy-sounding voice, but I am a product of the leaves budding and the flowers coming out and the beauty that is spring that we can't enjoy because we're sneezing. So apologize for that, but let's dive into Park Your Phone, Drive Your Car. I'm excited about this today. Should take about 30-35 minutes to get through the presentation. I think if you have any questions, you can just enter them into your chat box over on the side. We'll be happy to kind of take those and answer them at the end. And that's that. I think it's appropriate that we are doing this today, especially, or in the month of April, as April is nationally known as Distracted Driving Awareness and Prevention Month. So it is a good and timely time to be having the conversation. We're going to get into a few things today. First, we're going to talk about distracted driving, define it. We're going to talk about inattention blindness and define that, as well as multitasking. We're going to, once we've defined those kind of three elements, try to understand how they create the risks, especially while driving. And we'll also talk about the argument of handheld versus hands-free. And then we'll wrap it up with kind of some prevention suggestions and techniques. So, you know, the first vehicles kind of came off the production line in 1913. The first known distraction that was recorded actually happened in the early 1920s. There was a newspaper article that we could find where an op-ed piece was basically in an uproar over the idea of automatic windshield wipers. And how could you safely drive with something flying across the windshield blocking your vision? I think that's, you know, laughable today as we're worried about everything that happens inside the car. And as car manufacturers keep kind of implementing new technologies and making your mobile technologies available within your car, the distractions, to even consider the windshield wiper as a distraction is laughable. And we'll talk a little bit about the idea of autonomous cars and what that could also do to traffic safety as they come off production lines. Google says sometime in the next 7 to 10 years. Okay, so multitasking as a definition is very simply the ability to do several things at the same time. Very simple. I think we hear this a lot, especially in corporate environments. I'm a great multitasker, or if we're interviewing somebody, we say we need somebody that is a really good multitasker that can do multiple things at the same time. I'm very good at multitasking. I can handle this. Yes, we can eat and breathe at the same time, but can we as human beings truly multitask? The answer is no. Research shows that our brains cannot do two cognitively demanding things at the same time. So that's important. two cognitively demanding things at the same time. I think if you think about your own kind of media consumption, let's use as an example. If you are watching television at home on the couch and you get a phone call and you take that phone call, you are either listening to the phone conversation and have no idea what's happening on the TV screen, or you are just shaking your head yes and saying uh-huh to whoever is on the other end of the phone, and you are fully immersed in whatever is happening on the TV screen. You can't actually, your brain can't handle both of those cognitively demanding things at the same time, where you could regurgitate everything that happened on the phone and everything that happened on the television screen at the same time. Your brain may be going back and forth between the two. To illustrate this, we're going to do just a little activity. So to yourselves, I kind of want you to just take 30 seconds and very simply say the letters A through L and then the numbers 1 through 12. So A, B, C, and then the numbers 1 through 12. So I'll wait quietly. It should take you no more than 30 seconds. Do this to yourself. Go. Okay, excellent. Hopefully you were all able to do that. Very simple. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now I want you to do the same thing, but this time I want you to switch between numbers and letters. So A1, B2, C3, up to L12. I'll give you another 30 seconds and go. It's usually right around now the letter E or F that people get to, excuse me, get to and can no longer even do it anymore. They've lost track. They're messed up. And the idea here that I think you probably just saw, and if you could have heard, you know, the people from around the country and the world doing this together, it would have been laughable. You can't do it. Your brain, for whatever reason, just by this very simple task of combining letters and numbers, shuts down. And it's toggling back and forth between these two very similar but very separate ideas. And the idea that we're trying to get across here is if you can't say a combination of numbers and letters, what makes you think that you can send a text message and operate a motor vehicle at the same time? So this is supposed to prove to you that multitasking is, in fact, a myth. So let's talk about it as it relates to distractions and driving. Distracted driving is any activity that could divert a person's attention away from the primary task of driving. All distractions endanger the driver, passenger, and bystander safety. So if we're using our multitasking myth as kind of an intro to this, both cell phone use or any other distraction is one cognitively demanding activity, and driving is another. And if you're doing two of those things at the same time, you're doing neither of those things well. All distractions take us away from the primary task, which is driving. Here is a list of examples: texting, using a cell phone, children, passengers, wearables, grooming. We've been doing these presentations kind of around the country a couple of years now, and it always leads to people coming up to me afterwards and telling me a story of one distraction or another. My favorite happened probably 2 weeks ago at a conference in Boston where somebody raised their hand and said, I just wanted to share with you that the other day I was at a stoplight and I witnessed a person actually playing the flute, and as the light turned green and they drove away, they continued playing the flute. So it is not certainly limited to using a cell phone or text messaging, but the distractions can be anything that is taking your mind off of the idea or the very task of driving. So there are three categories of distractions. The first is visual. Are your eyes on the road or not? So anytime that you take your eyes off of the road, you are visually distracted. This may be to look at what song is on the radio. This may be to check your speedometer. This may actually be to check your rear view or side view mirrors to see what's behind you. But if your eyes are not on the road ahead of you, you are considered to be visually distracted. The next is manual or mechanical. Are your hands on the wheel? So you may have to take your hands off the wheel to adjust your seat, or if you're in a manual shift car, to shift gears, or to actually change the radio station, or to turn on your windshield wipers. There are a number of reasons that you'll take your hands off the wheel. Anytime you do, you are manually distracted. Third and final, and probably most common, is cognitive distraction. So anytime that your mind is not on the task of driving, so you're thinking about that big presentation that you have coming up next week, or you need to review your staff, or your wife called and needs you to pick up the kids and you're not sure how you're going to be able to get there. Anything that you're thinking about that isn't actually driving is considered to be a cognitive distraction. Visual and manual are usually pretty short. You might take your eyes off the road quick, you might take your hands off the road quick. Cognitive, considerably longer, because most people don't realize that it's happening. I don't know if you've ever been driving and gotten into a deep thought of something that really is important to you and matters, and all of a sudden you kind of look around and go, oh my God, I don't even know I drove past my exit. You lose track of the idea that you're even behind the wheel, and that can be a little bit scary. Text messaging requires all three. So when we talked about visual and manual distractions especially, a lot of the examples I gave are things you might actually have to do to continue to be safe behind the wheel. If you're turning your turn signal on, your hand is off the wheel, but you're still thinking about driving, your eyes are still on the road. If you take your eyes off of the road for some reason or another to look at your mirrors perhaps, but your hands are still on the wheel and you're still thinking about driving, you're still a safe driver. The reason that cell phones are so alarming is that all three distractions are happening at the same time. You're not looking, your hands are off the wheel, and you're not thinking about driving. It's literally driving blind. So we do a lot of teen driver education at my company, teaching 16-year-old kids about distracted driving, and the kind of statistic or the real-world example that we use to get this across to them is at highway speeds, so 55 miles per hour, glancing at your cell phone to read a 3-line text message would be the same as driving the length of a football field while blindfolded. So if you could imagine going end zone to end zone with a blindfold on in a car at 55 miles an hour, that is the exact same thing as looking at a cell phone message. I think if somebody challenged you to do that, you wouldn't. Yet for some reason we glance at our cell phones all the time, thinking that it's just a quick look and that nothing will change in front of you. But when you start to put it in perspective, it can get very scary. Getting into a little bit of the history of the cell phone, just to kind of give this some context, cell phones were actually developed in the late 1980s. It was more like car phones. Some of you will remember the picture of the briefcase over there on the left-hand side. Text messaging was actually designed in 1993. We didn't really start to use it in mass until the introduction of the iPhone, Blackberries, and smartphones became popular in 2001 through 2004. So this graph shows you wireless subscriptions. This is in the United States. Excuse me. In 1989, there were 3.5 million wireless subscriptions. In 2010, there were 300.5. The last statistic I saw for 2015 was over 450 million, meaning that we are now almost above one subscription per person that lives in the U.S., which is getting drastic. So you can see that this has become a more widely spread use, especially over the last 10 to 11 years. Just a few statistics for you. It is estimated that at any given moment during daylight hours, 660,000 vehicles are being driven while the driver is using their cell phone. It is estimated that at any given moment during daylight hours, 660,000, that just seems so drastic to me, but these are right from the National Safety Council. They did these studies and they are real. 660,000 vehicles are being driven while the driver is using their cell phone. As of December 2012, 171 billion with a B, text messages were sent in the United States every month. Data indicates that 26% of all motor vehicle crashes are the result of the driver being distracted by a cell phone. Now, I think the number actually goes up to 90% of motor vehicle crashes are caused by a distraction, with only 26% of that being a cell phone. So you can start to see that distractions as a whole are a really big problem, and cell phones are just a percentage of that problem. 90% of all motor vehicle crashes are human error. So This basically, the other 10%, just so that you understand, would be a tire blows out or an engine failure or a vehicle catches on fire, some kind of vehicle malfunction. 90% of the motor vehicle crashes are caused by human error, caused by something that we do behind the wheel. We can fix this problem, you know, just by putting more focus on the idea of driving and understanding some of these statistics. Driving more defensively and working with our family and our friends to try and get them to drive more defensively. We can really affect the statistic and hopefully save lives and prevent injuries. More distractions are on the way. I really want to talk about this for a second as it relates to some of the corporate folks that we're talking to today. So if you are an entrepreneur, a business owner, if you're a C-suite executive, even if you manage a team of people, take a look at your employee handbook and just see if you have anything in your policies and procedures about driving while distracted. And if you do, really check to make sure that it includes not just cell phones, but all technology. Most of the handbooks that we're looking at today make no mention of things like Google Glasses, iWatches, or other devices that are now being installed in cars. And you really have to make sure that your company policy is all-inclusive so that you don't have a problem where an employee is driving while distracted and can actually say, my employer was asking me to do it or didn't tell me that I shouldn't be doing it. As these new technologies keep kind of rolling out, and it feels like they come new every 3 to 6 months, there's something else. You want to make sure that your policy is worded in a way for your staff to include any kind of distraction that could happen on the road. Vehicles are being designed with technology to prevent accidents, certainly. I think the problem that happens with this is that you start to depend on those technologies. So I drive a 2015 Chevy Tahoe. If I change lanes without a signal on, I get a vibration in my seat that tells me that I've crossed a lane line. And it's wonderful. But the problem when you do that and start to depend on that technology is, as we know, technology fails. So if you're depending on these accident prevention technologies, and for some reason they don't work in a moment, for whatever reason that may be, there's no excuse for you if you're in an accident to say, oh, it's the car's fault. You are still driving the car. And until we perfect driverless technology, we have to know that you're driving the car. And these technologies are wonderful, but just be careful of depending on them to keep you safe. All right, let's talk a little bit about handheld versus hands-free. This question comes up every time that I do this presentation. Is it okay that I use my Bluetooth? I never text while I'm driving. However, I do use my cell phone, but it's fine because I'm on my Bluetooth. So just to kind of give this some perspective. There was a research study done, I'm going to show you a couple of pictures of it in a minute, that used visual monitoring. So it tracked people's eyeballs. And it basically tracked it while they were on the phone versus when they were off the phone. What this found is that people who were on their cell phone, hands-free, did less visual monitoring of the dashboard and mirrors, so they're looking at less things, made fewer glances to traffic lights at intersections. Some drivers didn't even look at traffic lights. Many missed visual cues critical to navigation, street and exit signs, so this is a similar deal. A lot of people will say to me, oh, you know, I totally understand what you're saying. I was on the phone the other day, I was deep ingrained in this conference call, and when I hung up the phone and looked, I was 5 exits past my house. I couldn't believe it. I drove past where I was trying to go because I was so ingrained in what was happening on the phone call. You were hands-free, but you were still clearly distracted. And this one's important, missing both high and low relevant objects. So missing things that are like bridges and also low, speed bumps or potholes. So the definition here, inattention blindness, is the failure to notice an unexpected stimulus that is in one field of vision when other attention-demanding tasks are being performed. Kind of a wordy way of saying you're looking but not seeing, right? So even though you're looking in front of you and there's a road and cars and other things happening, if you are on your phone, even hands-free, and you are focused on that phone call, you're not truly focused on what's happening in the road in front of you. It's the same thing when we talked about early on in the presentation, the example of being on the couch and watching television versus talking to somebody on the phone. If you're ingrained in the phone conversation, you're not watching what's happening in front of you, even though you are indeed hands-free. Going back to our multitasking kind of definition in the example, these are two cognitively demanding tasks. You're talking on the cell phone, you're operating your motor vehicle, and your brain is toggling between those two tasks. So you're only doing one of these things well. You're either talking and truly ingrained in the conversation and participating and listening, or you're driving the car and not really sure what's happening in the phone conversation. People that do talk on hands-free, they'll share with me all the time, I thought about this and you're right. I was on a phone call the other day and something happened. I saw police sirens in front of me and I focused in on those police sirens and I stopped listening to the person on the phone until all of a sudden I heard them saying, "Are you there? Did I lose you?" And then I clicked back into the phone conversation. So I think if you think about your phone use habits and kind of are honest with yourself, you might find that to be true as well. Here's a picture of a bus. This bus was traveling on a highway in Virginia. On that highway in Virginia, there were two signs. You'll see one that says the bridge at 13 feet 4 inches, one that says the bridge 10 feet 2 inches. About a mile prior to this bridge, there was another sign warning of the height of the two lanes. This bus was in the right lane. If this bus was in the left lane, this bus would have carried on with no problem. However, after doing a study, it came out that the driver of the bus was on his cell phone on a hands-free device and never saw the visual cues of the low height bridge ahead and basically cut the top off of the bus. If I can talk to my passenger, why can't I talk on my cell phone? This is another one that we get all the time when we give these presentations. I don't understand. It's no different than having somebody in the passenger seat and having a conversation with them. It is so different because the person in your passenger seat is in the car with you. They're a second set of eyes. They know what's happening around you. They actually can help you to be a safer driver because they're looking out for other cars and other things on the road, whereas the person that you're talking to on the cell phone has no idea the environment that you're in or what's happening around you. That is the main difference. It's the physical presence versus the non-ability to know what's happening. The science has shown there is no significant difference between handheld and hands-free. We say hands-free is not risk-free. People say all the time, I'm unwilling to give up my phone conversations, and that's a choice that you can make. But we're trying to get across today that this is it is a true risk and something that you should be considering. And again, those of you that are entrepreneurs and own your own business and have employees or C-suite executives, or if you manage a team of people, really need to be thinking about this as it relates to your employees. Are you actually encouraging them to be using their phone while they're behind the wheel? If so, and if they are in an accident, you need to understand that it is your liability and your risk in having them do that. And if there ever were an accident, that you open yourself up to a pretty hefty lawsuit. I'm going to pause here just for like 30 to 60 seconds. Kat, I don't know if you want to jump in quick. I just got to kind of take care of this pollen.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much, Brandon. If you have any questions that you wanted to ask Brandon, there's a chat feature on your GoToMeeting panel on the right side of your screen. Feel free to put in your questions and we'll have Brandon address those. Also, I will be emailing everyone information about Brandon's course, along with a 30% discount later today to use yourself or share with your colleagues who were not able to attend today's event. And if you have any specific training need that I might be able to help provide recommendations and solutions, let me know. You can email me directly at Kat, @cogno.com or info@cogno.com. Brandon, back to you.
Okay, thanks so much. Just a few things left, probably another 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to just go through some statistics here, and then we'll get into some prevention techniques and talk a little bit more about how it affects you as a company and what you should be doing to make sure that your employees are acting in accordance with rules and laws. So in 2011, about 5 years ago, the AAA Foundation did a big survey just asking people their opinion about talking on a cell phone while driving. 88% of the respondents consider talking on a cell phone while driving a serious threat to safety. 88%. However, 69% talked on a cell phone while driving in the last 30 days. That delta is what we're trying to address. So George Carlin has a pretty famous stand-up bit, paraphrasing. He basically says, everybody slower than me is an idiot, everybody faster than me is a moron. It's that idea here that we all see people using their cell phones or texting, and when we see them, we feel angry. How can that person be on their phone? I can't believe they would do that. They're putting me at risk. However, the same people that are usually thinking that about other drivers, when they hear their phone ding, are reaching to their phone to glance at it and make sure that it's not a message they need to reply to. So our kind of psychology on this versus our actions on this is a big disconnect, and something that we really need to think about and say, how can I say as I want, I guess, or do as I say. 49% of people that were surveyed supported a total ban on cell phone use while driving. So when you get in the car and you're behind the wheel, we don't want a cell phone to be used at all. Same question was asked about texting and emailing. Again, this was 2011, so 5 years ago. I think this would probably be even more if we asked it again. 96% of respondents considered texting and emailing while driving a serious threat. That's almost everybody. 96% consider it a serious threat. However, 35% admitted to reading a text or email while driving in the last 30 days. So even though close to 100% of people think that it's a serious threat, 35% are still admitting to doing it. And again, just trying to address that delta of, if 96% consider it a threat to safety, why don't only 4% of people admit to reading a text or email while driving? Less than 1% of the people surveyed did not consider drivers or email a threat. I think that's important. Everybody, again, is seeing it as something that's dangerous and threatening and risky, yet the number of people that are participating in it, a quick drive down the highway in your hometown will show you that almost everybody is actually doing it. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, drivers talking on their cell phones have slower reaction times equal to or even slower than a person with a blood alcohol content of 0.08. So 0.08 being the legal limit that you could drive, anything 0.08 or above is considered to be a DUI. Drivers talking on their cell phone have slower reaction times than a person who is considered to be driving under the influence. Texting now is a bigger cause of death and injury on the roadways than drinking and driving. And NHTSA and HTSA is saying that texting can be up to 6 times more dangerous than driving while intoxicated. I told you we'd talk about the autonomous car. The one on the left there is Google's car. They're driving it now, I believe, in 8 states. The one on the right is a 18-wheeler that is also fully autonomous that is driving around the state of Nevada now. Both of these are on the road and being tested regularly. As it stands today, there still has to be a person behind the wheel operating the car, although from what we're hearing from Google, Tesla, Apple, it sounds like they are 10 to 15 years away from really having this technology dialed in. Whether you believe that or not is up to you. We are obviously keeping a close eye on it because it is our business. But something that we do need to be conscious of and thinking about, we especially are keeping an eye on it as it relates to corporate policies and what should be happening in employee handbooks. If you all of a sudden have people behind the wheel or not behind the wheel of an autonomous car, who is responsible for that car? Is it the manufacturer? Is it the technology provider? Is it the owner of the car? If that car were to be in an accident, who is responsible for it? And I think that this has the potential to really disrupt the insurance agency, especially, insurance business, insurance industry, especially, as fault is going to become a question. I think we also have to keep an eye on government regulation and what they're going to allow or not allow on the roads. So it is coming, something we all just need to be conscious of and aware of, especially as corporate leaders, company leaders, to know how it may affect your business. Okay, so some prevention techniques. The first thing is what we ask everyone that takes our courses to do: commit to 1 week. You are going to take 1 week, Monday to Sunday, completely off from using your cell phone behind the wheel. So if you're going to do that 1 week, that means your phone, no Bluetooth, no hands-free calling, no texting. You're not going to touch the phone. You're going to get in the car. You're going to put it in your glove box. You're going to drive, and you're not going to look at it again until you get to your destination. So if you can make that commitment, the very first thing to do is to tell your family and friends. So you don't want people to think that you're not responding to them or calling you multiple times because they're used to you answering. So have a sit down with the people that call you most regularly and say, look, I've made this commitment to my friends and family. I'm not going to use the phone behind the wheel for 1 week. And I just ask for your patience. I want to try this thing out. If you can make that first step and communicate that outward, it'll help in the rest of it becoming successful. So once you've done that, we recommend that everybody change your voicemail message to indicate that you don't answer calls while driving. So my voicemail message, if you call, says, hi, you've reached Brandon with the next street or Agentis Safety. Thanks so much for your call. Unfortunately, I'm behind the wheel right now and I don't answer my phone while driving. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you when my car is in park. I can't tell you how many people have left me voicemail messages saying, Brandon, I'm so happy to have heard your voicemail message. I'm so happy you don't use the phone while driving. It scares me every time I see somebody doing it. I'm going to make the same commitment and change my voicemail message also. So it has turned into a positive more so than a negative. The other recommendation, set some ringtones so that you know if an important call comes in so that you can get pulled over to a safe location. So my wife has her own ringtone. Any of my business partners have their own ringtone, but the office has its own ringtone. Anybody that would call into me that is a non-negotiable, kind of like need to answer or return the call quickly, has their own ringtone. And if you set that up, you know that it's an important one and you've got to get somewhere to be able to call them back quickly. The other one, don't call or text someone that you know is driving. So if you're going to make this commitment to yourself, especially your staff, if you have staff that's out on the road, a salesperson as an example, and they said they just left the office and you know they're behind the wheel going to the next appointment, don't call or text them. You know they're driving, and you're just putting them at risk. And then the last thing, kind of in this proactive planning section, this is my email signature. Same deal. I can't tell you how many people have replied to my email and said thank you. I really appreciate your signature and I'm now going to use it. Sent from my iPhone but not while driving. If you're reading this while driving, please stop. That at the bottom of your email signature is really moving and can really help drive your own brand and your own respect with your clients, vendors, etc. Okay, so you've made the commitment, you've communicated that you don't use your phone while driving, so that's done. So now it's just before you leave. Make sure that your children and pets are secure so that they don't end up being a distraction. Check and respond to all of your messages and finalize all of your communication before you even get behind the wheel. If you're in the middle of a conversation and you start driving, you're going to be tempted to finish the conversation. So set yourself up for success. Put the cell phone out of reach. We recommend the glove box, somewhere that you're not even going to be able to reach it even if you are tempted to do so, or you're going to have to pull over if you are tempted to do so. GPS, I think GPS is a wonderful tool and I don't think you should stop using it. The important thing is to set it up before you leave. So the challenge with GPS is when you realize halfway to your destination, shoot, I don't know where I'm going, now I'm going to try and find it. I'm going to pull Waze up and I'm going to do some searching, I don't know the address, now I got to get into my email. Get your GPS set up before you leave. And then finally, your music. If you're going to shuffle an iPhone playlist or you're going to use a CD or whatever, get all of that set up before you leave so that you're not reaching to look for your phone to switch songs and taking your eyes off the road. Once you're driving, once all that's done, you get behind the wheel. If you do need to use your phone, pull over to a safe location to do so. Don't do it while you're driving. Get somewhere that's, you're in good vision. Put the car in park, do what you got to do, and then carry on with your trip. Another option is to use your passenger to handle the distractions. So if I go anywhere and I need to have a call or I need to have emails sent, I'll bring one of my coworkers along with me. I'll ask them to drive, and I'll handle my business from the passenger seat. And then finally, take breaks to avoid fatigue, eat, and use your phone. ExxonMobil, one of the largest companies in the world, has a complete cell phone ban for their employees. All of their employees. So they require that if you are driving anywhere longer than 2 hours, that you need to plan travel stops every 45 minutes to check your messages before you carry on your way. So the people tell me that it is impossible. I use that example and say if ExxonMobil can do it, I'm quite certain that your company can figure out a way to be cell phone free while you're behind the wheel. A few other things, don't talk to other people who call you while driving. Dressing and grooming should be done at home, not while driving. This one always makes me laugh, but I hear the stories all the time. This person was shaving. I couldn't believe it. I saw a guy changing his shirt. This guy was trying to put his blazer on. Just get all that done before you leave the house. That's kind of that shouldn't even be a question. And then the last thing is to educate others. Don't just make this something that you do for yourself, but really get your coworkers, family, and friends involved. The more people that you're doing this with, it's kind of like working out. You're setting yourself up for success to get this across. There are some technologies out there to help you control this. A few are up on the screen here. None of them are perfect. All of them do serve the purpose. So most of these, the basic idea is that it stops your phone from being able to make calls or text messages except to 911 and one emergency number that you see fit. So that especially works really well with teenagers. If you don't want your teens to be using their phone behind the wheel, live to text is a great one. It basically shuts the phone down completely once it's going faster than 5 miles per hour. It uses GPS technology and makes it so that you can only call 911 or one emergency phone number. All of these are great. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit here about why this matters to employers, and it's a Latin term. If there are any lawyers on the call, they'll be nodding their heads right now, known as respondeat superior. Basically means an employer is responsible for the actions of employees performed within the course of their employment. So the example I always give is this. You have an office administrator or a personal assistant, and they are going out to lunch. Off the clock, and you say to them when they're going out to lunch, hey, would you mind just dropping the bank deposit off at the bank? This employee leaves the office off the clock, gets into their personal car, while driving their personal car, uses their personal cell phone to send a personal text message and runs into somebody at a traffic light. If it comes out that they were on a company errand, such as bringing the bank deposit to the bank, when this happened, you could actually be liable for that accident, especially if you don't have anything in your employee handbook that says driving while distracted is completely unacceptable at our company, and that you've trained all of your employees on that policy. So takeaway action item here is go to your employee handbook right now and make sure that you have a section in there about driving specific to distractions. And make sure that if you do not, that you add it quickly, and that you have every person sign off on it, that they've read it and understand it. If you would like to take the next step in training all of your employees, the Cogno training class that CAC talked about, this training course that you all just went through, is available. It's mobile friendly. It's very inexpensive. You can track that your employees have taken it. And it will go a lot further if a personal injury attorney shows up at your front door and says, employee X was in an accident while on company time and we think it's your fault. If you hand that personal injury attorney your policy, the signature from your employee that says they read and understand the policy, and then the certificate that that employee completed the Cogno training program, they're most likely going to say, okay, we understand, and they'll be out your door with no further conversation. So really, really important, especially if you are an entrepreneur that has employees, if you manage a team of employees, if you're a C-suite executive, anybody that is responsible for employees needs to be checking their employee handbook. One of the big questions we have, Brandon, if we ban cell phone use, my employees are going to be in an uproar, and our productivity is going to drop drastically. A pretty good number of Fortune 500 companies, especially people that have risk management divisions that know and understand this, have put total cell phone bans in place. Of those that have total cell phone bans from the Fortune 500, 19% actually say their productivity increased. So 19% of people that put a total cell phone ban in place saw a productivity increase. And when we said, well, why? Here's why. If you're on a conference call while you're driving, and somebody gives you an action item, you're really not able to write that action item down. You're probably not all the way invested in the conference call because you are still thinking about the driving at hand. What a total cell phone ban forced them to do was to be at a desk in front of their computer and on the phone, fully invested in the meeting with no distractions around them, and thus you see the productivity increase. 22% saw no change, 52% were unaware or unable to measure any changes. Only 7% felt that productivity decreased when they put a total ban in place, and all of those 7% said the productivity decrease was worth it for the decrease in their risk exposure. If you don't have employees, if you're a freelancer, you know, a 1099 consultant, something like that, this should still be important to you just to be able to get home to your family and friends. You know, the statistics are scary. Between the ages of 16 and 45, you're more likely to die in your car than you are of heart disease and cancer combined. That's scary, and you can take steps to put yourself in a position to be successful, to get home safe every day. And I think it's important that you really take this seriously. Park your phone, drive your car, just commit to it for 1 week. And I think that you'll find in that 1 week, it's actually a nice time to be disconnected from the world, be by yourself and your thoughts, and to get home safe to your friends and family. So with that, I'll put my information up here. Please feel free to call me or email me anytime. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Just search my name. I hope you'll add me. And if you have any more questions on any of this, you can check out our website. We have a bunch of safety training course options. We do have some policies up there for download if you have questions on how to get that. Or, of course, you can email me. I'll be happy to send you some stuff. And, Kat, I think if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
All righty. If you have any questions at all for Brandon before we conclude today's webinar, you can enter those on the GoToMeeting panel on your screen. And Brandon, I do have a question already for you. It says that we have a ban on our CDL drivers, but we do not have a policy for our drivers of regular cars. Is that okay?
No, that actually is worse. So basically what you're doing when you say that is that it is not okay for this class of drivers to use their cell phones, but it's fine if this other class uses their cell phones. So that opens you up to such a problem if one of those people in the non-CDL class were to get into an incident. If an attorney goes into your handbook and sees, okay, we banned them for CDL drivers, but we didn't ban them and we didn't educate, we didn't train our non-CDL folks, you've opened yourself up to just massive risk. If you are a company that has CDL drivers, then you almost certainly are going to have a policy in your handbook about this for CDL drivers. You need to make sure that it's all inclusive and not just for your CDL people. That was a great question.
All right, excellent. Let's see, I think there's another question here. I understand the risks, but how do I actually roll this out as a company? How do I get the employees to take this seriously?
The biggest thing is start this with a major declaration from company leadership. If you don't have company leadership buy-in for this, don't even start, don't even try, because it's never going to get off the ground and you're just going to frustrate yourself. But the most success we've seen with this is when a CEO kind of comes from their company, announces it outward, I have made the commitment to park my phone and drive my car. I'm going to ask all of you to make that commitment with me. And then it takes a good 6 to 12 months of kind of building it into your regular meeting rhythms and your conversations and making sure that it's not something that just gets sent in an email once, talked about regularly. There's a number of rewards programs that you can implement and come up with to reward the behavior instead of punishing it for not happening. And really kind of make a show of it. That is the best way to get it to exist institutionally, is really build it into your company culture as a safety mechanism and position it as something that is good for the employees, not something that's stopping them from doing their work. So if you can show them why it is positively affecting their safety and their risk and not something that's going to stop them from being able to do their work, then you'll be a lot more successful. I could go on this for a long time. It's what we do. So if this is something you are thinking about rolling out company-wide, shoot me an email and we'll get a call in the books, and I'll be happy to talk you through some options.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. That's all the questions that we have now. If you happen to think of any questions after the webinar, you can feel free to email Brandon directly at his email address that he's providing on screen right now, or you can email me and I will get the question over to Brandon. Brandon, do you have anything else that you wanted to say in conclusion?
No, I appreciate the time. Thank you, everyone, so much for participating. I hope that you'll make the commitment. Just 1 week. If you can do it with your family, your coworkers, your friends, and make it a thing, and just commit 1 week. I'm going to put the phone in my glove compartment. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to be really focused on the road, and just notice the difference that you have behind the wheel of not using it. I'm confident that it'll become kind of ingrained in your own behaviors. So please take the commitment. We take this very seriously, and I hope you guys will too. And thanks so much for your time today.
And thank you so much, Brandon. And thank you, everyone, for attending today's event. I will be emailing everyone a 30% discount and the recording link for today's webinar, so you can share that with your colleagues. Additionally, I'm really excited about a new product that we have called the Training University. The Training University instantly provides your company with an extensive resource for training, all with no upfront costs. You'll have an easily accessible training portal for onboarding your employees, your ongoing training regimens, and compliance and safety training. It's deployed in minutes and very easy to use. So I will also email everybody a video link for the Training University so you can take a look, and then just give me a reply email and we can set up a quick demo for that. So again, thank you all so much for attending today's webinar, and I hope to see you next month at the next Cogno Series webinar event. Have a great day and drive safely.